The global business of modern warfare? Yeah, everyone thinks that if a war breaks out, the ones who fight and win will be the ones who profit, who get money from the losing side or something like that, right? But that's not true at all. The people who actually go into battle, into the war zone, whether they win or lose, both sides end up losing. The third party, the one who does business with war and reaps all the benefits from it, whether it's interest income, profits, or anything else that comes from war, is the one who lends money for the war. You can support or get more information about doing business during wartime by scanning this QR code, or you can just hit subscribe. Honestly, even though I wrote this episode myself, I still feel like the content is super interesting. But hey, am I just hyping it up? You'll have to keep watching to see if it's really as fun as I say. This is Saima Channel. Here comes the monster. All right, let me tell you about how the complex business of wartime actually works. How lenders are able to systematically siphon massive amounts of money from the people and even from superpower nations through something called war. How do they do it? I am going to explain exactly how this happens to you by using the detailed historical price graph of French government bonds. Political corruption, hunger, and a devastated economy became the spark that drove a huge number of French working-class citizens into the heart of the city, leading to a revolution on July 14th, 1789. At that time, French government bonds were still valued at 100, but as the violence escalated, it eventually led to the purge of King Louis XVI's royal family. The king was executed by guillotine. The king's head fell along with the value of French government bonds, which plummeted to negative 50%, and France showed no signs of improvement. After King Louis XVI was executed, the French economy only got worse and worse. The person who rose to power next was Maximilien Robespierre, the leader of the movement to overthrow the king. He rose to power, and during the 1 year that Robespierre ruled over France, he ordered thousands of people to be executed by guillotine. That period became known as the Reign of Terror, but it only lasted a year. Eventually, it was Robespierre's turn to be dragged to the guillotine himself. The era considered the most brutal in French history finally came to an end. Along with Robespierre's life on July 28, 1794, the death of this ruthless ruler ignited a faint but noticeable glimmer of hope, causing French government bond prices to jump slightly. There was a bit of volatility, but it was just a momentary and fleeting spike in the market. The question remains, who was it that finally managed to successfully apprehend and drag the notoriously cruel and bloodthirsty leader Robespierre to the guillotine? The person behind Robespierre's execution was Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, an anti-Christian organization whose goal was to destroy the ruling classes and governments of each country in order to establish a single world government. The Illuminati's approach was to incite the masses to the working class, who were often oppressed by the upper class, to rise up and fight. At the same time, in France, there was a large influx of people of color immigrating to the country. With so many immigrants coming in, they were, of course, treated as second-class citizens, hungry, oppressed, mistreated, and living lives completely different from the upper class, like heaven and hell. And this, the long-standing patience of those who had been bullied, became the absolute perfect fuel that the Illuminati used to incite the French Revolution. Before the revolution actually happened, in 1786, the Bavarian government uncovered startling evidence, detailed documents from the Illuminati that revealed plans to incite the overthrow of the French monarchy. At that time, these documents were officially dispatched to the heads of churches and various local authorities, but no one really paid attention. They thought, oh, it's just a crazy theory. Who could possibly overthrow the King of France? No one believed it could actually happen. But just 3 years after those documents were revealed, in 1789, the French Revolution really did begin. At that time, Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, he infiltrated gatherings of the working class. He was the one who introduced Illuminati ideas, brotherhood, peace, and equality, to Robespierre, until Robespierre became the leader in overthrowing the French king. But in the end, after Robespierre successfully overthrew the French monarchy, he was betrayed by Adam Weishaupt, eliminated, and silenced his key ally. And the reason the French Revolution was able to last for 10 years was because there was significant financial backing. This funding came from a notoriously influential Jewish banker of that era, Mayer Emschel Rothschild, the founder of the Rothschild family, who possessed such an extraordinary level of financial influence, so great that no one could ever hope to surpass him. And the reason for this is the reason these Jewish bankers supported the French Revolution was for their own benefit, to revolutionize the financial system in a way that favored them. This included the desire to establish a new constitution and draft new laws, because the existing ones conflicted with the prohibitions of the Roman Church. The Roman Church strictly forbade lending money, and even more so, it prohibited charging interest, which was not at all beneficial for bankers. Bankers wanted to lend money because they wanted to collect interest. Naturally, this rule from the church was something bankers really didn't like, because it made doing business difficult for them, especially when it came to lending money for war efforts. So, Jewish bankers moved their money around as much as they could to support the French Revolution. That's why the revolution kept going on and on for about 10 years, until one day, a certain captain named Napoleon Bonaparte appeared. He brought cannons right into the heart of France, which put a stop to all the violence and chaos of the revolution. Stopped. Can you believe it? Even though, hey, there were cannonballs landing right in the middle of the city, the people were actually really happy about it, because it brought an end to the violence. It ended the revolution. People were just exhausted by all the political violence. It had gone on for way too long. They couldn't make a living anymore. And on the day Napoleon ascended to the imperial throne, he established yet another enduring legend. During the coronation ceremony, Napoleon took the crown from the Pope's hands and firmly placed it upon his own head. This was a powerful symbol that he had gained power without needing to rely on the church at all. But on the day the revolution ended, on the day Napoleon was officially declared the ruler, if we look back at the price charts of government bonds, the French government's bonds plummeted in value. They were practically entirely worthless. On that day, French government bonds had almost no value left at all. The worthlessness of those bonds reflected just how devastated France was, completely torn apart by a decade of violent upheaval in the streets. A country left with nothing like that. What could possibly be left for Jewish bankers to profit from, to make money off of war? In 1804, Emperor Napoleon ascended to the throne. At that time, Emperor Napoleon needed a considerable amount of funding to wage war. The way emperors back then thought about financing wars was simple. If you conquered someone else's land, you could just take their resources and money. That was the standard way of waging war. But to actually go to battle, you need soldiers, you need weapons, you need food, and you need money. You have to have all of that. Sponsors. And the people who could sponsor Napoleon's military campaigns back then were the Jewish bankers. And if you think about it, wasn't it the Jewish bankers who supported the French Revolution because they wanted to change the laws and the Constitution to benefit themselves? to the point where French government bonds crashed and became worthless. Yes, that's right, it was the Jewish bankers. They were the ones who sponsored the French Revolution, but that's not surprising, is it? If the Jewish bankers decided to sponsor Napoleon's wars to create opportunities and help French bonds regain their value, it makes sense. And that's exactly it. Right before Napoleon went off to war, those French government bonds I mentioned had plummeted and were practically worthless. The clever Jewish bankers. So they told the public, I'll buy them, I'll buy those cheap bonds. Bring them to me, sell them to me. For example, if the price was almost worthless, let's say just 5 baht, they'd say, hey, bring them to me. You'll still get 5 baht. Better to have something than nothing, right? People didn't want to lose out even more than they already had. So a lot of people ended up selling their French government bonds, which were at rock bottom prices at the time. They'd already lost so much, stuck at the top with no idea how much worse it could get, so they figured it was better to sell to the Jewish banker. At that time, the French people were thinking the same thing. Napoleon's off to war again? Is he even gonna win? Who knows, right? So they thought it was better to just take the 5 baht and go home. But from the perspective of the Jewish banker, the fact that French government bonds had dropped so much in value was just a summer sale. On top of that, it was like a massive discount. A sale that they themselves had planned to make happen in the first place. All of this means that the bankers were the ones running the war business and controlling the price of government bonds. The French government bonds went from an all-time high to crashing to the floor. And because these Jewish bankers were financial experts, they understood that the word bond, especially when it's followed by the word government, is considered risk-free. Because when the government issues bonds, what does that mean? Do you know? It means the government is borrowing money from the people. On one hand, they're borrowing money from the public, and on the other hand, they're collecting taxes from the public. So let's say the government issues bonds and offers a nice interest rate, like 5%. Then they just collect taxes from the people, right? And then they use the people's tax money to pay interest back to the people. Wow, what a great deal. Plus, this method also allows the government and the central bank to raise funds by issuing bonds to borrow money from the public, right? Once they've borrowed money from the people, the actual cash goes to the Ministry of Finance to be used for whatever expenses they need. As for the bonds themselves, which are basically promissory notes showing that people have paid money in, those notes are sent to as collateral. Bonds act as assets to back the printing of new money. For example, if the government borrows from the public by issuing bonds for 100 million baht, they offer a 5% interest rate. The government collects 5 million baht in taxes and uses it to pay interest back. So people just get their own tax money back as interest. Then the 100 million baht is sent to the Ministry of Finance, and the bond, the 100 million baht, is sent to the central bank, which then prints new money. This is what they call the money machine, a standard mechanism used by superpower nations to build their economies. And when it comes to government bonds, they're considered extremely low risk. Jewish bankers like them because as soon as the word government is attached at the end, it means that no matter what, this debt will be repaid. They can always squeeze the necessary money out of hardworking taxpayers to pay off the national debt. As long as there are citizens to tax, to scrape, and to squeeze, these government bonds will never default or miss a single payment. Now, let's get back to the specific case of French government bonds of that era. The value of those French government bonds plummeted significantly after the French Revolution, right? At that time, when Napoleon came to power, he went to war. And the reason Napoleon was able to go to war was because the Jewish community supported the funding for it, right? After Napoleon went to war, it turned out he was extremely skilled. He managed to suppress neighboring countries and rebuild the French Empire, bringing resources and wealth back into France. And then, suddenly, the price of French government bonds surged dramatically once more, reaching the same level as before the French Revolution. Consequently, the Jewish bankers who had bought up French government bonds when their value had plummeted and were essentially considered to be worthless became extraordinarily wealthy individuals. This is what is commonly referred to as the business of war. The people who get the richest are the ones who lend money to fund wars.